This is like the Cold War, but with artificial intelligence, because both these countries know that whoever either reaches AGI first or just has the most advanced AIs is going to win moving forward. Good morning, this is AI with Kyle. I'm giving you a daily update of the news and what's going on in artificial intelligence. And there is basically one piece of news today, which is coming from America, and that is Trump's new plan about winning the AI race. So specifically, winning the AI race, America's AI action plan. It's a big, audacious plan. Basically, the Trump administration getting all in on artificial intelligence and asking for all regulation to be removed. A lot of that is, dare I say it, quite sensible, but in normal Trump administration fashion, they've managed to squeeze in a few troubling aspects as well. The main one being, I'll show you the summary here. There's a few things that make an awful lot of sense considering where we are right now and where America is geopolitically. So exporting American AI, basically putting American AI first instead of Chinese. This is what this is about. It's a race between China and America. Promoting the build out of data centers, fine. Enabling innovation and adoption, absolutely fine. And then boom, we have this final point, upholding free speech in frontier models. So updating federal procurement guidelines to ensure the government only contracts with frontier large language model developers who ensure that their systems are objective and free from top-down ideological bias. Yeah. Now, this is the language that is often used on the right in order to suppress language of the left. Most of our models, with an exception I'll get to in a moment, most of our models are left-leaning liberal. So ChatGPT, for example, is left-leaning. This is not that surprising considering who is making it. They're being made in San Francisco. They're being made by tech bros. So having this kind of libertarian, but then slightly into the left on social issues stance is not that surprising. The reason we get this is actually because of something called, I'm going to pull it up because it is worth discussing, reinforcement learning from human feedback. So when we create a model initially, we put basically all the data that we have available to us into the model. This is the internet, plus collections of books and whatever information they can get their hands on, basically. But primarily, it's going to be the internet. Now, the internet is a bit of a mess. There is a huge amount of hatred. There is a huge amount of racism. There is pornographic material. There is a lot of problematic information on the internet. So we go through a few stages during the pre-training of filtering it out, getting rid of the worst things, and then trying to clean up that data source. So even at this stage, we're putting forward a moral judgment. We're saying this stuff's bad, this stuff is good. For some things, most humans would agree. For others, it becomes a debate. It becomes a debate of, oh, is that actually bad? Or should we be allowing those people to have freedom of speech and to allow their, what you call hateful opinions into our model? So this is the first stage during the pre-training. After this, we do something called RLHF, which is reinforcement learning from human feedback. Basically, we've got this model, which is, we've tried to clean it up. We've tried to give it the best of the internet based on somebody's idea of what best is. But then we take it a step further and we have humans basically grade the answers. So humans will sit with the artificial intelligence, let's say GPT-5, which is probably coming out in the next month or two. Humans will sit and they'll work with the new model, the GPT, and then they will give feedback on what answers are suitable, what answers are off the guardrails, what answers should be allowed into the model and which ones should not. So Chip Huiyan, who's written some amazing stuff, and you should definitely go and check her out, has this image of, which is one of the old gods, a Cthulian old god, that being the representation of like the unfiltered large language model in the background. But then we have at the front end, we have reinforcement learning by human feedback, which is the friendly face, the smiley face that this old god puts on. And that's the one that we interact with on a daily basis because it has these guardrails. It has basically confirmation by humans that these are the things that it's okay to say. So we have 3 levels, basically pre-train the model. That is an untamed monster because it's trained on indiscriminate data scraped from the internet. So clickbait, misinformation, propaganda, conspiracy theories, attacks against certain demographics, racism, And then we fine tune it with higher quality data. So things like Stack Overflow, Quora, or human annotations. So actually notated data that gives further context. And then we fine tune that model using RLHF, reinforcement learning through human feedback, to make it customer appropriate, to make it okay for the people who are using it on a daily basis. And it won't allow us to make ricin or how to make pipe bombs or tell us that it is Mecha Hitler, for example. We have these stages in place to make it a lot more palatable for the general human population. Now, what the White House is saying in the kind of fourth pillar here is we want systems that are objective and free from top-down ideological bias. What they're basically saying here is we don't want left-leaning ideology. So what happened with Grok and Elon Musk's model is it has always put itself forward and purported to be a censorship-free model, one that doesn't have any ideologies. And we have seen what's happened in the last week. It's calling itself Mecha Hitler, with it just spewing anti-Semitic nonsense. And it doesn't take that much to get it to do that. So there's a question here of, is that a true objective model? Or have you just created a monster by not providing those guidelines? And should we be putting those guidelines in place? This is not just a technical question. This is an ethical question. And it depends on who is setting those ethics at the top. But in the case of this new Trump, what would you call it? This new Trump action plan, it looks like they are going to be leaning into models that are more like Grok and less like ChatGPT, and certainly less like Anthropic. And specifically saying that we will not support, so the government will only contract with frontier large language model developers who ensure that their systems are objective. So they're only going to be giving money to companies like XAI that follow this objective, top-down, free from top-down ideological bias approach. So it'd be interesting to see if the companies that purport to be more ethical, like Anthropic, the creators of Claude, whether they will toe the line here and remove guardrails and allow their models to be more free, including to be racist and anti-Semitic and hateful, or whether these models will say, absolutely not, we're not going to do that. We want to build a model that is not full of hatred. We'll see when the money starts to be spent, because this, unlike in the UK, where the government makes big proclamations and pronouncements about artificial intelligence, the White House action plan will come with money. A lot of money has already been spent. Just trying to, let me pull up some numbers. There was a 90 million grant recently. I'm just on CNN. So here we go. 90 billion. I'm sorry. I always forget the numbers are larger. So July 15th. So that was a week ago. The president announced an investment of more than 90 billion for companies across tech, energy, and finance to turn Pennsylvania into a hub for artificial intelligence. Interestingly, not California. So California is where it all is right now. He wants to bring it closer to where he is, over in Pennsylvania, over closer to Washington, D.C. And he kicked off his second term with a $50 billion AI infrastructure project called Stargate. So that was with Sam Altman, Masayoshi Son, and Larry Ellison. So a lot of money is being thrown into artificial intelligence. There was also last week, since the beginning of this new Trump term, NVIDIA has not been allowed to sell chips to China, even though NVIDIA created the new H20 chip. The H20 is a underpowered H100, which was built to kind of come under the regulations to be allowed to be sent to China. It has about 30 to 40% of the power of the H100 chips, which are the workhorse. Last week, that was allowed once again to be sent to China. I wonder if this new action plan is going to change that calculus, and whether NVIDIA is going to be told once again, absolutely not, you are not allowed to sell these chips to China. We will see. I think a lot is going to be happening over the next couple of weeks to do with artificial intelligence, because Trump has woken up and trying to push through a lot. We also had in the big, beautiful bill, was that last week or 2 weeks ago? They tried to add an amendment or some additional part. I forget if it was an amendment or what the exact structure of it was, but it was to disallow regulation being passed on a state level against artificial intelligence, and instead to make it a federal issue. Again, this felt very much an attack on California, because the industry is based in California. And if the state of California is in charge of the regulation, that puts Trump's larger federal and national plans at risk. And we already know he is not a fan of the governor of California or anyone there really, which again aligns with trying to bring models back to Pennsylvania, trying to bring that investment into Pennsylvania, bringing it closer to his heartland and where he is stronger. So a lot's going to be going on. This is all, don't get this wrong, this is all because of China. So even the language they're using, it's called winning the AI race. So the last big race we had was the arms race. This is the same thing. This is countries building nuclear weapons and seeing who can build the most. This is like the Cold War, but with artificial intelligence, because both these countries know that whoever either reaches AGI first or just has the most advanced AIs is going to win moving forward. Unfortunately, the EU and the UK and most of the rest of the world is out of this race. This is a two-horse race between China and the US, and that is it. And this action plan that we saw yesterday, this is Trump and the Trump administration's salvo saying, this is what we're doing. We're ready to fight, and we are going to be pushing back against China. So yeah, here we go. This is going to be big in the news. I'm sure I'm going to be talking about this a lot over the next few days, next few weeks, next few months even. We'll see what Beijing's reaction is. You can get the whole action plan online. It is 28 pages long. It's fairly systematic, fairly comprehensive. It covers a lot of things. The main pillars are accelerating AI innovation, so removing red tape specifically, enable AI adoption, build America AI infrastructure. So there's a lot linking this to jobs and being able to create a workforce that is building this for America. Third pillar is leading in international AI diplomacy and security. Okay, so against China. Oh, specifically counter Chinese influence in international governments bodies. So yeah, they are saying right up front that this is about going up against China, exporting American AI to allies and partners. So this is an arms race, basically. They're calling it a renaissance, an information revolution, etc., etc. They are sticking the boot in against the Biden administration. It's worth reading. It is a fascinating document. I'm not going to go through it all in detail, but it's only 28 pages, so I would have a look at it. The AI race is America's to win, and this action plan is our roadmap to victory. This is very much putting them on a war footing up against China. So that is the big news. We also heard that Amazon has shut down their Shanghai AI research lab. This was actually, was this yesterday? Yeah, this was yesterday. I don't know if this was connected to the new action plan where the Bezos had a heads up for pulling out of China. But I imagine we're going to be seeing a lot more of that with American companies pulling out of Chinese AI very shortly, because the battle lines are being drawn. Absolutely. So really, that is the big topic of the day. And I'm going to hop over to questions now, because nothing really going to beat that. Cleft is saying, from initial views, how do you compare the UK action plan versus the US? The UK does not have an action plan. The UK and Peter Kyle have made some noises about, hey, we need to use AI. You need to back that up with a huge amount of money, and they have not done so. They took a nice little gift from Meta for $1 million the other day, which they parceled out into 10 grants to help 10 people learn how to use AI to help government. The numbers are too small. The amount of cash being thrown around needs to be in the billions rather than in the millions. Hell, it's going into the trillions now. This new data center, the one with Larry Ellison, Sam Altman, and SoftBank, that was 500 billion, so nearly a trillion. There's another. The Department of Defense contracts that we saw last week were 4 AI companies. It was, who was it? OpenAI, Google, Grok, and was it Microsoft? Or was it Anthropic? It must have been Anthropic. We're each given a cap of 200 million from the Department of Defense. So that's another 800 billion potentially. So 200 billion. 200 million. So that's another 800 million. See, the numbers are getting so large that I'm starting to mix up the millions of billions and the trillions. But the amount of money that is being thrown at this problem is absolutely massive. The UK doesn't have the funds right now to do this. So when they are talking about, oh, we're going to spend £2 million on this or £1 million on this, that is not sufficient to enter this race. The price of entry is much higher. So just talking about how AI is going to revolutionize the workforce and how it's going to increase our industrial might, etc. That's not going to happen unless money is spent on building data centers, training models, training scientists to build these models, and training our workforce. And this is going to require significant resources, which the UK apparently are not willing to put into it. Whereas I know America, for better or worse, they will pump a lot of cash into this because they know that this is the race to win against China right now. And China are going to be doing exactly the same. I was just in China about a month or two ago, and the uptake in the public is, I would say, higher, certainly higher than in the UK. And they were a lot more enthusiastic than anyone that I talked to in America or the UK. There tends to be a lot more hesitation. There tends to be a lot more fear around AI in Anglophone countries compared to, at least in China. In Vietnam as well, it was being fairly heavily used. But China in particular, I noticed it was being pushed at the government level as well. And people were excited about companies like DeepSeek because they were proud. There was pride there, which I do not see in the West about our AI companies. I see fear and distrust. Scrolling through my questions. Oh, I've got a question from LinkedIn from Aisha. Yesterday, a panelist at the Oxford event mentioned how he went from chatbot to agentic AI, and the next stop is robotic AI, which China has a leg up due to their factory power. Yeah. So robotics has not had its ChatGPT moment yet. This is the ChatGPT moment for AI, for large language models specifically, and generative AI was November 2022. So it hasn't been that long. It's only been a couple of years. Robotics has not reached that level where everyday people are using robots yet because they're still too cost prohibitive. So it's about reducing those manufacturing costs. There's some pretty amazing stuff coming out already. It's just not at the point where individuals, even people who are enthusiasts, can have them in their homes, can have them in their lives. We're probably moving towards that point. It's just because it's a physical creation, it's going to be harder to get to that point rather than software, which, like a large language model, because the cost of distribution, the cost of manufacturing is much lower in that particular case. So I think we will have a robotics moment. So some people ask me, like, what's the next big thing? And it's probably going to be robotics, or physical intelligence is another word being used for it. And absolutely, Aisha, China has the leg up here because China is where things are manufactured. This is where the manufacturing is happening. So if anyone's going to break that barrier and create robots that are cost effective enough to get them into people's homes and to basically have a ChatGPT moment for this new technology, it's going to be China, because America have companies like Boston Dynamics that are leading the forefront of the actual research. They are not building consumer units. They're not even trying to build consumer units. They're just pushing forward. If anything, they're going for military units and industrial units before they're going for consumer, whereas China will push for consumer as well. So absolutely, robotics will have its moment, and it's going to be in China for sure. Yeah, I think that's a race that's already lost. And the manufacturing capability has been built up there over the last few decades, whereas it has left the West because the West wanted to use China for cheap manufacturing. And this is what happens when you cut corners and you divest your investments over to China and build your manufacturing there so you can save money in the short term. Now it means that nothing is made in the West. I saw this great video of a Chinese influencer, and this was during the tariffs, and an American commented, "That's fine, I don't need anything from China anyway." And the commenter was basically saying, everything you are touching, everything you're sitting on, everything you move around, it's probably made in China. And then he goes around his own house and he's like, okay, I'm going to find items that are made in America. No, aren't any. So, because this has happened and manufacturing has been moved to China, yes, 100% robotics, and the ChatGPT moment for robotics will be in China. It will not be in the West. I think that one is too late, because to build up that kind of manufacturing base will take decades, and we're going to have this moment in the next few years. All of the videos, all of the clips, all of the kind of short form video from these, they will appear on YouTube. There's also going to be a newsletter, which is yesterday's news rounded up and put into a nice and easy to read format for you with time codes, etc. So you don't need to watch the live itself. I use the live to produce the rest of the content, but you can consume it in any way that makes sense for you. Check out the YouTube channel. It is slowly growing. It is a grind to grow it. Apparently at 10,000, it starts to get easier, but right now I'm sitting at 2,500 or something like that. So Any support there would be much appreciated. And join the free newsletter as well, because that's going to allow you to get access to the daily updates without having to necessarily come on the live. But you can ask questions on the live. That's going to be the main thing for you. Cool. And thank you, everybody. And I will see you tomorrow morning.